Do you struggle with motivation when it comes to exercise and working out? If so, then I wanted to do this shorter podcast episode on a couple of strategies that are very simple but overlooked when it comes to keeping that consistency in the gym or with what exercise program that you're trying to keep to. Now, the first of those two is related to planning. Now, please bear with me because I know planning sounds really boring. It's something you don't want to have to do, but I just want to kind of highlight an example of how it can be really effective and not very complicated either. So I just want you to take a second to think about Couch to 5K, why it's so popular, why it's so successful at getting people from the point of not being able to run at all, or of never having run before, to being able to do either a 5K event or just get into that distance of 5 kilometers. Now, we need to understand something called decision fatigue. And this is something that when we're trying to achieve a task, if you have to make lots of decisions in order to be able to do that task, every one of those decisions can be mentally draining. And the more mentally draining each one of those decisions is, and the culmination of all of those together, if that is a process you have to go through every time, it then becomes very challenging to maintain your motivation and keep turning up every time, knowing that it's going to be mentally draining just to achieve or even get started with what you're trying to do. So if we go back to running and that goal of achieving 5 kilometers. So if that was your goal, you wanted to start running, you've never really ran before, and you want to get to 5 kilometers at some point in the future, and you haven't really clearly defined when that's going to be. And goal planning is a whole separate issue or separate conversation, which I'm not going to go into now, but I'll do another podcast episode on that. But when it comes to the planning of that, if you don't really have a plan in place and your plan was, I'm just going to run 3 times a week and I'm hoping I'll be able to get to 5 kilometers. That first run you do, you step out the front door. You then have to think, okay, how far am I going to go today? What pace should I go? What route should I go for so that I don't end up too far away, or I don't want to pick someone that's too hilly? If you have to think about that every single time you step out, and it's lots of these little decisions that before you've even started your run, that becomes really challenging and really draining every time you do it. Whereas if you take that same person who has downloaded the Couch to 5K app and they step out the front door, they turn their app on and they're told, right, now you're going to walk for 5 minutes. Now, at the end of 5 minutes, you get counted in. In 10 seconds, you're going to start running and you're going to do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, run. And you're going to run for 1 minute. And at the end of the 1 minute, and you haven't even got to time it, it just tells you, so all you've got to focus on is just keep one foot in front of the other. It tells you you can now walk again in 3, 2, 1, walk. And then if you're on that first level of Couch to 5K, it's generally minute run, minute and a half walk, 8 repetitions. And then at the end of it, it tells you you're finished. It gives you a bit of update on the pace, depending on the app you're using. The only thing you're really going to have to think about is potentially what route you might take so that you're not ending up too far away from home. Or you could do a little loop near you and keep repeating that loop till it's up, and then you're close enough that you can walk back home again. So the Couch to 5K is brilliant because you don't have that decision fatigue on the day. The only decision you have to make is putting your shoes on or trainers on and stepping out the front door, turn the app on and pressing go. Everything from that point is taken care of for you. So I want to bring that back to the gym and go back to the kind of first analogy of not having a plan. So if your plan is pretty much, I want to get stronger, I'm going to start going to the gym 3 times a week. You step in that gym and now you have to think, okay, what exercise am I going to do? What weight will I do that exercise with? Okay, how many repetitions am I going to do? How many sets of those repetitions might I do? Okay, I've done that exercise. What exercise am I going to do next? And if you then have to do that again every single time and try and remember what weight you used or think about, effectively come up with a new program every single time you go into the gym, it's not going to be long before you decide that you can't be bothered, it's too much effort, and I'm going to just do something else instead. Whereas, similar to Couch to 5K, if you now have a plan in place that you've created, you know you can do all the exercises, you know that you're going to go into the gym and you're going to do these 5 exercises today. Last time I did them, I used this weight for this number of repetitions, and you have that documented from last time. And then you can just go, right, I'm going to pick up that same weight, do it. If that felt a bit easier this time, I might try a little bit higher weight. You also know that the plan you've created is going to take you over at least a 12-week window where you're going to slowly try and increase the weight to reduce the repetitions to failure. So you might be at one of those transition weeks where, okay, last time I did 12 repetitions, but I need to try and see if I can get down to 10 repetitions today. And I used, say, 10 kilograms for my shoulder press last time. Today, I'm going to see if I can increase that to 11 kilograms to see where that takes me to. And again, they're the only things you have to really think about is how I progress from one week to the next. I don't have to think about the exercise I'm doing. I don't have to remember the weights for each individual exercise because I just refer back to the previous page. Okay, that's what I did. Great. Going. And that planning process, you might take you 20 minutes at the start of this whole process, is then the thing that's going to make it so much easier to turn up, because again, you just have to get out the front door, walk into the gym, or even to your little home gym if you're doing this from home, open up your plan, and again, everything else is then kind of taken care of from there. You're not having to think all these little decisions along the way. So that is the big thing. Sometimes it's useful to also create some flex in that plan. So particularly if you're in the gym, you're going to do these 5 exercises, but you get to one exercise and someone is on the bit of equipment that you needed to use. Having a plan B of what you might do instead of that exercise. So initially the plan B might be, I'm just going to swap the exercises round. So now instead of doing that exercise, I'm going to do the shoulder press instead of the squat, and I'll come back and hopefully that bit of equipment will be free. If it's not, having a different variation of the same type of movement pattern that you can do instead. So rather than just missing it out and feeling frustrated by that, you've done something that at least is getting you closer to achieving what you want with those movement patterns. So having that little flexibility in the plan, so having a plan B in place, because again, if you don't have that plan B in place first, it's another decision you're going to need to make on the day, which makes things a little bit harder. So that's the planning element. But in addition to that, I wanted to add in a second strategy that can be really useful, and that is counting the streaks. Now, partly I wanted to add it in because it's useful. Partly I wanted to do it because it's a bit of a little bit brag, because today I reached my 1,000-day streak of learning French on Duolingo. And it's great timing because I wanted to just highlight the importance or just the effectiveness of having that streak that I was working towards. Is I knew that I was getting closer to 1,000, so I was definitely not going to break that streak because I really wanted to get to 1,000. And now I'm at 1,000, I really want to continue onwards. And it's slightly different with strength training because it's not suggested that you do it every single day. We're only really looking, particularly if you're just getting started, for 2 to 3 times a week. So if you can then start counting the weeks that you have successfully reached your target of whether it was 2, whether it was 3, you can then start going, well, actually, today I did my 3rd workout of the week. That is 5 weeks in a row. It's going to be much harder for you to break the streak on the 6th, knowing you've done 5 successful weeks, because every successful week you add to it, it makes you more driven to complete it the next week. So it's a really powerful tool to keep yourself motivated. So if you're not already tracking your streaks, I suggest you start looking at that as an option. Again, as a caveat, and we talked about the pros of it, the cons are knowing that you have to have some flex in that too. So for me, doing French learning, if I'm unwell, it's still easy enough for me to quickly do 5 minutes of the French learning. It might be slightly harder for me to concentrate, but I can still do it and tick off that I've done it. If you're unwell, it is okay to have a day or a week of training, and don't beat yourself up about it. If you've got a reason for not doing it, you could almost take what Duolingo use as freeze streaks in the app. So if they give you a number of freeze streaks per month, I think. I've only used it, I think, a couple of times in there. But if you've miss a day, it just freezes. It doesn't add anything off. It doesn't take it off. And it then gives you the chance in the next day to resume where you left off. If you then miss 2 in a row, you've then lost your streak completely. And you don't get that free streak back until you've completed another certain amount in a week. So you kind of use that concept of, if I miss a week due to illness, that's fine. I'm not going to suddenly go from 5 weeks and back to 0. But I'm not also going to add on that 6th week of the week I didn't do. I'm going to resume the 7th week is now as my 6th week, if that makes sense. So again, give yourself some flex in that. The other thing is to have a plan in place if you do break a streak. And because now with me at the 1,000, it would be easy if I lose the streak tomorrow to give up with the whole thing and think, well, I'm never going to get close to 1,000 again. It's going to take me ages. I'm just going to give up with French learning. Whereas the other take on it is, okay, I've missed it. I got to 1,000 last time. I'm going to start again from scratch, but I'm going to beat 1,000. And that's my target. I'm going to get at least one more than the time I did before. And you just get straight back on it and go again. But it's having that kind of plan and challenging your mindset with that, so you don't give up if you do miss a streak. But yeah, in summary, 2 big, powerful things that you can do to help with your motivation with exercise or the gym. First one is making sure you don't skip the planning process. Have a plan in place of the exercise you want to do. Give yourself a good idea of the weights you're going to use, number of repetitions and sets, and how that's going to progress over 12 weeks. And again, you can adapt and modify as you need it, but having that in place is you're so much more likely to keep to your program than if you don't have a plan and you're just making up a new workout program every time you go in and you're trying to remember the weights from last time, and it is draining to do that every time. And the second one is start monitoring how many times a week you're going and how many weeks in a row you've been successful with that, and that will help keep going forwards. Like I said at the start, this is just a shorter episode that I wanted to try alongside those longer episodes and those longer interviews that I've done. Next week, I'm back for an interview with Elizabeth. That was a really inspiring story of how she got started at age of 66, having never trained before, and the progress that she's made is incredible. So you're not going to want to miss that episode. So look out for that next Wednesday. But for now, I will leave you to it, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you.